Hey friends, just want to do a video real quick to share some of my thoughts with this weird election that we're having. It seems pretty clear that there's some voter fraud happening. We don't really know how much of an impact it's having, but there's weird things happening. Bunch of votes showing up for Biden in the middle of the night, dead people voting. And it's in our best interest as Americans to make sure that this is investigated and that we can be assured that we have free and fair elections in our country, that we have legitimately elected political representatives. One of the problems I see with this, though, is that the mainstream media controls the message. So if the mainstream media comes out and says, well, there's no fraud, even if there is fraud, the masses are going to believe that there's no fraud, regardless of what the evidence is. And then we have this over these past few days, everybody has kind of sided with their camp on, so for example, you have the right-leaning conservatives, patriots, Republicans, Trump supporters. They already believe that there is fraud. And so even if the media comes out and says there's no fraud, well, they're going to continue to believe that there is fraud, right? Because it's the fake news media just lying as per usual. And then on the other hand, you have the left-leaning, the Democrats, the liberals, the socialists. They already believe that Trump is a horrible, awful monster and a dictator, because that's the message they're hearing from the mainstream media, and that there's no way that he could legitimately win an election, right? During this prolonged election period, everybody's already chosen what side they're on. And people have been able to form an opinion of what they believe the legitimate outcome should be, and are already convinced that if that outcome doesn't come to pass, it's cause for a revolt, it's cause for an uprising, a revolution, etc. As I see it, where we are right now, there are only two possible outcomes, right? We have two candidates, and there's two possible outcomes. The big problem that I see is that whichever one of these outcomes we have, the end result is going to be violence in the streets. Brother against brother, American against American. And hopefully I'm wrong, and if you can see some other alternative after watching my video, please put a thoughtful, reasoned response in the comments on this video, and help me to see what I'm missing. But here's what I see. Outcome number one, let's say Biden wins. If Biden wins and all of these claims of fraud are dismissed, and even if they're investigated and it turns out, oh, there's nothing going on here, or it was such an insignificant amount that it wouldn't have affected the election, right? Even if that's true, what are all the patriots, the conservatives, the Trump supporters, the Republicans, what do you think they're going to do? They already believe that there's fraud. They already believe that the mainstream media is lying fake news. So what'll they do? And I imagine that they'll likely rally in Washington, D.C. or something like that, demand that this corrupt government, these corrupt politicians, that all this is removed. And then we have outcome number two. What if Trump wins? And what if it is determined that there was fraudulent ballots and other nefarious activity in this election, other malarkey in this election? How many Biden supporters and Bernie bros and Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other Marxists are going to show up in Washington, D.C., believing that Trump is a dictator and that he stole this election and there's a coup and all of that? So you have both sides over the past few days have already made up their minds about who the legitimate president should be. And both sides, through confirmation bias, have already demonstrated that they're willing to ignore facts if that goes against what they already believe. That's just normal human behavior. So regardless of the outcome, the other side is going to be angry and think that the election was stolen. And even if we're only talking about, like, let's say 99% of the people are more even-keeled and decide to let bygones be bygones, even if it's just 1% of the people that get really fired up about this, which honestly I think is a lot. It's going to be a lot higher percentage. But even if it's only 1%, 1% of 350 million people is still 3.5 million people, which is a lot of people. So there's going to be some kind of violent reaction to everything that's happened. I really hope I'm wrong, but that's my prediction on this election, is that regardless of the outcome, there's going to be violence. The only thing that can diffuse this potentially violent situation is the truth. Capital T, big truth, absolute truth. We need to know what's really going on. The Bible says the truth will set you free, and the truth would set us free, but we the people have decided that confirmation bias and instant gratification from just swiping through social media, reading headlines, is preferable to thinking for ourselves and doing the hard work and digging deep and finding the truth. I just want to encourage everybody, please do the hard work, dig deep, try to find the truth, look at sources from different sides, look at left-leaning sources and look at right-leaning sources. Look at things that are in the mainstream media and look at things that are in the alternative media, and try to find out what's really going on. Try to look at all the different sides, and try to love your family, love your neighbor, and try to reach across the aisle and love somebody who thinks differently than you. And that's just having a conversation, and just take the time to find out, hey, why do you support this other candidate? Why do you support these other political beliefs that I don't support? And just try to learn from that person and try to figure out why it is that they believe the way that they believe and why it is that they voted the way they voted. Don't assume that the other person is inhuman, the other person's a monster just because they think differently than you. We really need to pull together. We really need to reach out and find truth and to love our neighbor. And that's the only way we're going to get through this without seeing massive violence, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. If I'm way off target, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys. Stay safe.